I used to believe that doing the right thing would always lead to the right outcome. I believed that if I warned people before they made a terrible mistake, they would appreciate my honesty, even if they hated hearing it at first. I was wrong. In my previous life, that belief cost me everything. Before our senior class submitted college applications, a girl named Vanessa transferred into our school. Within a few weeks, she became the center of everyone's attention. She dressed like someone who had never looked at a price tag, arrived in luxury cars, carried handbags that most families couldn't afford in a year, and casually mentioned that her parents had donated enormous amounts of money to prestigious universities. She never directly claimed to be the daughter of a billionaire, but she never denied it either. She let everyone reach that conclusion on their own, and they gladly did. Then one afternoon she smiled at the entire class and confidently announced that anyone who wanted to attend one of the country's most elite universities only had to leave everything to her. According to her, admissions officers personally knew her family, and a single phone call would be enough to secure acceptance letters. My classmates practically worshipped her after hearing that. Students who had no realistic chance of getting into those schools suddenly stopped worrying about grades, essays, and deadlines. Some even canceled appointments with college counselors because they believed Vanessa would take care of every detail. Listening to them celebrate, I felt a chill run through me. Even before I remembered my previous life, something about her story sounded impossible. But then the memories returned with terrifying clarity. I remembered desperately begging everyone not to trust her. I remembered calling their parents one after another, warning them that they still needed to submit applications themselves because no one could guarantee admission. I remembered exposing Vanessa's lies just before the final deadline. The truth spread quickly, and everyone turned against her overnight. Unable to face the humiliation, she threw herself into a river and ended her own life. At first, my classmates thanked me. They told me I had saved their futures. They called me brave. They said they owed me everything. Then, during our graduation dinner, they repaid me by murdering me. My boyfriend slipped poison into my drink while the rest of the class quietly watched me collapse onto the floor. I still remember the unbearable pain burning through my body as blood poured from my eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. They stared without lifting a finger. The last thing I heard was someone coldly saying that, at worst, they would have lost a chance to attend their dream schools, but because of me, Vanessa had lost her life. According to them, my death was justice. Even after I stopped breathing, their hatred wasn't satisfied. My boyfriend unlocked my phone and called my parents, pretending there had been an emergency. They rushed to the restaurant without hesitation. My mother nearly fainted when she saw my body lying on the floor, while my father reached toward me with trembling hands, unable to believe what had happened. Those monsters comforted my parents, helped them sit down, and offered them glasses of water. My parents accepted without suspecting anything. Seconds later, they began coughing up blood. Only then did my classmates reveal their true faces. They admitted they had poisoned my parents as well because, in their twisted minds, our entire family deserved to die. They blamed me for Vanessa's death and claimed my parents should suffer for raising someone as cruel as I supposedly was. The three of us died together inside that private dining room. I remember floating above our bodies, consumed by grief and helpless rage, wishing I could drag every one of them into hell beside me. Then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, familiar voices echoed through the classroom. "Vanessa, was that your father's Rolls-Royce outside?" someone asked excitedly. "He's so busy, yet he still drives you to school himself." I stood frozen beside my desk, staring around the room as realization slowly settled over me. I had returned to the exact day everything began. Vanessa laughed softly and shook her head. "That wasn't our chauffeur," she replied with practiced modesty. "That was my dad." The room immediately filled with jealous admiration. Everyone praised her wonderful family while she quietly accepted every compliment without correcting a single misunderstanding. I knew every word coming out of her mouth was a lie. My heart pounded as memories from my previous life flooded back. Then she suddenly looked directly at me and smiled. "Sophia," she said sweetly, "you're such an outstanding student. You probably don't need my family's help to get into an Ivy League school, do you?" Before I could answer, my boyfriend, Ryan, burst into laughter. "Don't waste your generosity on her," he sneered. "Even if she somehow gets accepted, she'll never be able to afford tuition. She belongs at some cheap community college." Several classmates immediately joined in. One girl smirked and added that even if Vanessa generously paid my tuition, she couldn't possibly support me forever. Another joked that poor people like me should know my place instead of dreaming about prestigious universities. Vanessa pretended to think for a moment before speaking in the kindest voice imaginable. "Actually, my family often sponsors students from disadvantaged backgrounds," she said. "Sophia, if you kneel down and sincerely ask me for help right now, maybe I'll even pay for your education myself." Every insult from my previous life rushed back at once. My fists tightened so hard my nails dug into my palms. Part of me wanted to slap the fake smile off her face, but I forced myself to remain calm. "No, thank you," I replied evenly. "Things that don't belong to you have a habit of coming back to haunt you eventually." Her expression froze for only a heartbeat before tears instantly appeared in her eyes. "I was only trying to help," she whispered, making herself look like the victim. "If attending a great university could change your entire future, why reject kindness?" Ryan immediately stepped between us and shoved me so hard that I nearly lost my balance. "Stop acting so ungrateful," he snapped. "A girl like Vanessa is offering to change your life, and you're too proud to appreciate it. Poor people really do have the biggest egos." Laughter erupted around the classroom as dozens of eyes watched, hoping I would finally break. Instead, I simply looked at every one of them and quietly said, "My family can pay for my education. Even if they couldn't, scholarships, grants, and student loans exist. There is always another path. But depending on someone else's empty promises instead of submitting your own applications, that choice might cost you far more than you realize." I had met Ryan during our first year of high school. Since I consistently ranked near the top of our class, I often helped him prepare for exams, explaining subjects he struggled with and staying after school so we could study together. Somewhere along the way we fell in love, promising each other that no matter where life took us, we'd at least try to attend colleges in the same city. Looking back, I almost laughed at how foolish I had been. The person I once trusted more than anyone had been the same man who watched me die without a trace of regret. Everything changed after Vanessa transferred into our class during senior year. She arrived surrounded by luxury, making sure everyone noticed. Every few days she appeared with a new designer handbag, expensive jewelry, or limited edition sneakers. She never openly bragged, yet every conversation somehow drifted back to her family's incredible wealth. She casually claimed that college admissions were merely a formality because influential people owed her parents favors. According to her, prestigious universities practically welcomed families like hers with open arms. Soon almost everyone believed her. They competed for her attention, laughed at every joke she made, and eagerly accepted the expensive gifts she handed out as if they were nothing more than candy. Ryan became one of her biggest admirers. One afternoon she presented him with the newest gaming console on the market, a gift that cost more than many families earned in several months. From that day forward, he stopped focusing on school altogether. Instead of preparing applications or studying for entrance exams, he spent every spare moment playing games. His grades steadily declined, but he didn't seem to care anymore because he believed Vanessa would secure his future regardless of his academic record. Back then I genuinely worried about him. I begged him to put the console away until application season ended. I reminded him that there would be plenty of time for entertainment after graduation. Instead of thanking me, he looked at me with open contempt. "Do you even know how much this thing costs?" he sneered. "It's worth more than everything you own. Stop pretending you understand people like us." In my previous life, I had been devastated by those words. I even spoke with one of our teachers, hoping someone else could convince him to focus on school before it was too late. Now I understood how pathetic my efforts had been. You cannot save someone who willingly jumps into a fire because they believe they're immune to the flames. Ryan laughed loudly after hearing my warning to the class. Sophia, you're unbelievably naive, he announced, making sure everyone heard him. You honestly think people at Vanessa's level need to follow the same rules as ordinary students? If her family wants us admitted somewhere, one phone call is all it takes. The classroom erupted with agreement. Several students nodded enthusiastically while others mocked me for believing hard work mattered more than wealth. One boy leaned back in his chair with a smug grin. What's the point of getting perfect grades, he asked. Even if you study your entire life, you'll still end up working for people like Vanessa. Another girl smiled arrogantly. The opportunities you spend years chasing are things rich families can buy before breakfast. Their confidence would have sounded convincing if I hadn't already known the truth. Vanessa wasn't the daughter of a billionaire. Everything about her identity was fabricated. The expensive image she carefully built rested on nothing but stolen prestige and carefully crafted lies. I looked around the classroom, memorizing every face. These were the same people who had ignored my warnings, thanked me for saving them, then calmly watched me die. This time I refused to sacrifice myself for anyone. I sincerely hope everything turns out exactly the way you're expecting, I said quietly before picking up my backpack and walking out without another word. None of them noticed the small smile on my face. About a block away from school, a black Rolls-Royce waited beside the sidewalk. I climbed into the back seat, greeted the driver politely, and leaned against the window as we drove through the city toward our family's estate. Unlike Vanessa, I had never enjoyed showing off what I had. My parents had always taught me that wealth wasn't something to wave in front of other people. Respect came from character, not money. When I arrived home, both of my parents were waiting for me. My mother embraced me warmly before leading me into the living room where a beautifully wrapped box sat on the table. Congratulations, she said proudly. I wanted to celebrate your amazing application results. Inside rested an elegant diamond necklace that sparkled beneath the lights. Before I could respond, my father placed another folder beside it. This is your gift from me, he smiled. An apartment near whichever university you choose. If you don't want to live in a dormitory, you'll always have your own place. Seeing them alive shattered the composure I had struggled to maintain all day. Tears blurred my vision before I could stop them. In my previous life, both of them had died because they rushed to save me. Now they stood before me smiling, completely unaware of the fate that had once awaited us. My parents immediately grew concerned. My mother gently touched my face while my father asked if something had happened at school. I glanced toward the household staff before lowering my voice. Can we talk privately? Once we were alone inside my father's study, I told them everything that had happened that afternoon. I carefully repeated Vanessa's claims about her powerful family and the promises she had made to my classmates. The moment I mentioned her last name, my parents exchanged confused looks. My mother frowned first. Vanessa Carter, she repeated slowly. Isn't Carter the surname of one of our drivers? My father immediately remembered. Several months earlier, one of his newest employees had asked for help transferring his daughter into a better school. Believing the man to be hardworking and honest, my father had personally arranged for the transfer without giving it another thought. That single act of kindness had unknowingly placed a liar directly into my classroom. Vanessa's father had never even met me because he had only recently started working for our family. He knew my father's name, our businesses, our cars, and our lifestyle. Somehow his daughter had transformed those details into an entirely fictional identity for herself. My father's expression darkened with anger. I'll dismiss him immediately, he said coldly. I quickly shook my head. Not yet. If they realize we've uncovered the truth, they'll become careful. It's better if they continue believing no one suspects them. My mother folded her arms, her eyes filled with icy determination. Pretending to be wealthy is one thing. Humiliating and bullying my daughter is another. They will answer for everything they've done. I nodded before explaining the plan that had already begun forming in my mind. Unlike my previous life, I wasn't going to waste my energy convincing classmates who had already chosen to ignore reality. This time my priority was protecting my own future. That evening I carefully reviewed every application, double-checked every essay, recommendation letter, transcript, and supporting document before officially submitting them well ahead of the deadline. Only after receiving every confirmation email did I finally allow myself to breathe. No matter what happened next, no one would be able to claim I had failed because I neglected my own future while trying to rescue people determined to destroy theirs. After submitting every application, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders for the first time since waking up in this second life. My future no longer depended on luck or on convincing people who had already decided to ignore reason. Before going to bed, I sat with my parents for a while, enjoying something I hadn't been able to appreciate in my previous life, the simple comfort of hearing them laugh. I silently promised myself that no matter what happened, I would never allow anyone to take them away from me again. The following morning our guidance counselor posted a long message in the senior class group chat, reminding every student to double-check their applications, submit backup choices, and make sure no deadlines were missed. She emphasized that anyone who failed to apply on time would have very limited options afterward. In the teachers group, nobody replied. But inside the private student chat, where teachers weren't included, the conversation was completely different. They mocked our counselor for being old-fashioned and paranoid. Several classmates joked that ordinary students worried about deadlines because they lacked connections. According to them, Vanessa's family had already solved everything. A few minutes later Vanessa uploaded a glamorous photo from an expensive beach resort overseas. Beneath it she wrote, "I'm traveling with my family, but don't worry. Dad already handled everything. Just wait for your acceptance letters." The chat exploded with compliments. People thanked her repeatedly, calling her generous, amazing, and even their future savior. I quietly exited the conversation without typing a single word. My applications had already been submitted, and unlike everyone else, I wasn't gambling my future on a fantasy. A few days later I flew overseas with my parents for a short vacation before graduation. Everything seemed peaceful until the evening of the final application deadline. I was relaxing in my hotel room when my mother suddenly called. "Sophia," she said, "please log into every application account one more time. I know you've already submitted everything, but I just read about a student whose account was changed without permission before the deadline. Humor me and double-check." I almost laughed because nobody knew my passwords. Still, my mother's instincts had never failed her, so I opened my laptop without arguing. The moment my account loaded, every drop of blood drained from my face. One of my dream universities had disappeared from my submitted list. In its place was a tiny private college I had never heard of before. For several seconds I couldn't even breathe. Someone had withdrawn my application and replaced it with a worthless school only hours before the deadline. My hands shook violently as I restored the original application, verified every document, resubmitted everything, and confirmed the status multiple times until I was absolutely certain nothing else had changed. Afterward I immediately called my parents. My father remained calm despite the obvious anger in his voice. Within an hour he had contacted our cybersecurity team, secured every account I owned, changed my passwords, activated two-factor authentication, and started tracing whoever had accessed my profile. Later that night he sent me a single screenshot containing an IP address and the location from which my account had been accessed. I recognized it instantly. Ryan. He had guessed my password. During our relationship I often used dates connected to my birthday, something only someone close to me would know. He hadn't simply betrayed me emotionally, he had deliberately tried to destroy my future. If my mother hadn't insisted that I check my account one last time, everything I had worked for could have disappeared forever. I stared at the screen for a long time before my phone vibrated again. This time the message came from Vanessa. She sent me 2 screenshots. The first showed my application exactly as Ryan had left it, with my dream university removed. The second was far worse. It displayed a private conversation between the two of them. Ryan had proudly written, "I guessed her password. She'll never know until it's too late." Vanessa replied, "Good. She deserves it. Next time don't make such obvious mistakes." Beneath the screenshots she added one final sentence. "You're lucky you checked in time. I won't let him be careless again." I couldn't help laughing, although there wasn't a trace of humor in it. In my previous life I believed Ryan's cruelty had begun the night he poisoned me. Now I realized that he had started trying to ruin my life long before then. He simply hadn't found an opportunity to go further. Without responding, I saved every screenshot and forwarded everything to my father. Minutes later he called. "Don't delete anything," he instructed calmly. "Our lawyers are preserving all the evidence. Every login record, every message, every timestamp. If they think this is a harmless prank, they're about to learn otherwise." My mother took the phone next. The warmth in her voice nearly broke me. "You don't have to handle this alone, sweetheart." My throat tightened painfully. She had no idea how much those words meant. In my previous life she had died believing she was helping me. This time she was alive, standing beside me before disaster could strike. "I know," I whispered. "And this time I won't let them hurt any of us." By the time our vacation ended, my father had assembled a complete file containing every piece of evidence imaginable. There were login histories, IP addresses, security reports, screenshots of Ryan and Vanessa's conversation, records showing my restored application, copies of the private student chat where they mocked teachers and ridiculed me, and even Vanessa's message promising that Ryan would be more careful next time. My father's attorney placed the thick folder on his desk and quietly said, "This is more than enough for the school administration. It's more than enough for law enforcement if necessary." My father turned toward me. "What do you want to do?" I looked through the window for several silent moments before answering. "Nothing yet. Let them believe they've already won. They'll make far more mistakes if they think no one knows the truth." The first day back at school felt strangely familiar. Vanessa sat comfortably on top of Ryan's desk while classmates surrounded her, eagerly asking when their Ivy League acceptance letters would arrive. She even wore sunglasses inside the classroom, pretending to be some untouchable celebrity. The moment she noticed me, her smile widened. "Sophia," she called sweetly, "you look exhausted. College applications must be stressful when you don't have influential parents." Ryan smirked from his chair. "Maybe she's worried that even community colleges rejected her." Laughter echoed around the room. I calmly placed my backpack beside my desk and met their eyes. "Actually," I replied with a faint smile, "I slept wonderfully after changing all my passwords." Vanessa's expression froze for only an instant, but that tiny crack in her confidence told me everything I needed to know. Ryan's fingers stopped tapping against the desk. Neither of them expected me to discover what they'd done. Neither of them realized the game had already changed. In my previous life, I had spent every ounce of strength trying to rescue people who despised me. This time I opened my notebook, ignored every mocking glance directed toward me, and silently decided to let every one of them experience the consequences of their own choices. Their downfall had already begun. The following afternoon, our guidance counselor walked into the classroom looking more anxious than I had ever seen her. She placed a stack of papers on her desk before addressing everyone. "The primary application deadline has officially passed," she announced. "I need each of you to tell me which colleges you submitted applications to. If anyone missed the deadline, we still need to discuss alternative options immediately." Silence filled the room. Then one student confidently raised his hand. We didn't apply, he said. Vanessa's father is taking care of everything for us. The counselor blinked in confusion. Excuse me? Another student quickly explained that Vanessa's family had donated millions to top universities and had promised guaranteed admission. As more classmates repeated the same story, the color slowly drained from the counselor's face. She turned toward Vanessa. Is any of this true? Vanessa remained perfectly calm. My family's business is private, she replied with a polite smile. People at our level don't have to follow the same procedures as everyone else. The room fell silent. Even the students who believed her sounded slightly less confident now. The counselor took a deep breath before quietly saying, "College admissions don't work that way." Vanessa simply smiled wider. Maybe not for ordinary families. That single sentence changed everything. Before school ended, the principal announced an emergency meeting for every senior student and their parents. By late afternoon, the auditorium was packed with nervous families, teachers, administrators, and confused students. I arrived with my parents and quietly took seats near the front. Most people didn't even notice us because they were too busy surrounding Vanessa, treating her like the only person capable of solving their problems. Ryan stood beside her as though he were protecting royalty. One angry mother demanded to know why the school hadn't warned anyone about missing deadlines. Our counselor calmly opened a presentation showing every reminder she had sent over the past several months: emails, printed notices, classroom announcements, text messages, and repeated verbal instructions encouraging students to submit backup applications. Every warning had been documented. One father turned toward his son in disbelief. You told us the school said everything was under control. The boy lowered his head without answering. Suddenly another student pointed directly at me. Sophia knew this would happen, he shouted. She kept saying we should submit applications ourselves. She should have warned our parents. Dozens of faces immediately turned toward me. I almost laughed. In my previous life, I had warned every parent I could reach. I had begged, argued, pleaded, and sacrificed everything trying to save them. In return, they poisoned me and murdered my family. This time I calmly stood up. Last time, I said softly, I destroyed myself trying to protect people who refused to listen. This time I chose to respect your decisions. Confused whispers spread through the auditorium because no one understood what I meant. They didn't need to. My father quietly handed a remote to the principal, who switched the projector to another screen. The private student group chat immediately appeared before everyone. Every cruel message filled the display. Screenshots showed classmates mocking our counselor, laughing at application deadlines, insulting me for being poor, and confidently declaring that Vanessa's imaginary family connections made normal procedures unnecessary. Parents stared at the evidence in stunned silence before outrage erupted throughout the room. Several mothers smacked their children across the backs of their heads while fathers demanded explanations. Vanessa slowly stood up, forcing tears into her eyes. Please don't panic, she pleaded. My father will be here any minute. He'll explain everything. Almost on cue, the auditorium doors opened. My father entered alongside my mother, two attorneys, the principal, and several members of school security. Murmurs swept across the room. Many parents recognized him immediately. Some students whispered excitedly, assuming he must be Vanessa's powerful father. Vanessa smiled in relief, until my father walked directly past her and stopped beside me. Looking around the silent auditorium, he spoke in an even voice. Interesting, he said. I don't remember ever having a daughter named Vanessa. Absolute silence followed. Then he placed a hand on my shoulder. My daughter is Sophia. I watched the realization spread across hundreds of faces. Ryan looked at me as if he'd never seen me before. Vanessa's smile disappeared completely. She opened her mouth but couldn't produce a single word. My father continued calmly. Vanessa's father works for my family as one of my drivers. He has never possessed the authority to promise university admissions, scholarships, donations, or favors using my family's name. Shock rippled across the room. One parent quietly asked about the Rolls-Royce everyone had seen. My father's attorney answered without hesitation. Our family's vehicle. Another parent questioned the luxury vacations and expensive purchases. The attorney explained that those expenses were currently under investigation because company resources had been used without authorization. Vanessa finally broke down. I only wanted people to admire me, she cried. I looked directly at her. You never wanted respect, I said quietly. You wanted people to worship a life that was never yours. Tears streamed down her face, but this time almost nobody sympathized with her. My father's lawyer advanced the presentation again. Ryan's name now appeared on the screen beside login records, IP addresses, timestamps, security reports, and screenshots of his conversation with Vanessa discussing my stolen application. Ryan immediately jumped to his feet. That's completely out of context, he shouted. It was just a joke. My father looked at him coldly. Breaking into someone's account and attempting to destroy her future isn't a joke. Ryan's confidence vanished. She always acted superior, he muttered. Vanessa said none of it would matter anyway. Vanessa immediately turned on him. Don't drag me into this. You're the one who guessed her password. Within seconds they were accusing each other of everything, exposing even more lies as they desperately tried to save themselves. I simply stood there listening. They were accomplishing exactly what I had hoped, they were destroying each other without any help from me. Before the meeting ended, the principal announced formal disciplinary investigations. Ryan faced expulsion for unauthorized access, cyber-sabotage, and harassment. Vanessa would be investigated for fraud, bullying, and intentionally deceiving students. My father officially filed reports with both the school and the authorities. As my family left the auditorium, my mother gently squeezed my hand. Are you all right? She asked. I looked back one last time. Vanessa sat completely alone, abandoned by the classmates who had once surrounded her. Ryan was arguing with his parents, still refusing to accept responsibility for anything he had done. For the first time since opening my eyes in this second life, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a very long time. Peace. Weeks later, acceptance letters finally arrived. Sitting beside my parents, I opened the email that would decide my future. The first word I saw was congratulations. Tears instantly filled my eyes. I had been accepted into my dream university. No one had managed to steal my future this time. My mother hugged me tightly while my father smiled with more pride than I had ever seen on his face. In my previous life, I lost everything because I spent all my strength protecting people who never valued me. In this life, I chose to protect the people who truly mattered. My parents were alive. My future belonged to me. Ryan had lost the life he tried to destroy, Vanessa had lost the fake kingdom she built on borrowed lies, and everyone who trusted empty promises instead of their own efforts was forced to face the consequences of their decisions. That was all the revenge I needed. I no longer cared whether they regretted what they had done. Their punishment wasn't seeing me suffer, it was watching me succeed while they lived with the choices they had made. As I walked toward my future, I didn't look back again. Some doors are meant to stay closed forever.